Amazing millionaire lived in loneliness for 10 years until a surprising invitation from a new math teacher turns everything upside down. Ethan Carter leaned back in his leather chair, the sun setting outside his sprawling estate in Willow Creek. He had built a tech empire from the ground up, yet each evening found him alone, the walls around him teeming with artifacts of success that felt increasingly hollow. The luxury car parked in the driveway served only as a reminder of what he sacrificed for his ambition, his family, and he realized his accolades meant little against the backdrop of unending solitude. The allure of wealth faded against the laughter of children he once cherished, a distant memory that echoed faintly in the recesses of his mind. Turning to the stack of mail on the polished mahogany table, a colorful envelope caught his eye. It stood out amongst the dull bills and advertisements. An open house at Willow Creek High, hosted by a new math teacher named Maya. As he flipped it over, the details about Maya's commitment to helping underprivileged students sparked a flicker of curiosity in him, a yearning he hadn't felt in ages. Should he go? It was just a school event, a distraction from the weight of his thoughts, a momentary escape from his increasingly suffocating reality. Despite himself, he found the idea alluring. The thought of seeing a vibrant world filled with potential pulled at him. All at once, guilt washed over him. What right did he have to step into their lives, a man entwined in the limbo of isolation? After a long hesitation, he decided to attend, driven by an impulse he couldn't quite name. As he entered the high school, a flood of nostalgia enveloped him. The bustling hallways, the vibrant graffiti on lockers, the distant hum of laughter. It felt foreign, alive in ways his own life lacked. When he met Maya, her enthusiasm was infectious. She exuded passion for her students, her bright smile illuminating the mundane school setting. Ethan watched her navigate through a group of kids, her genuine connection to them igniting something within him, a raw yearning for human contact, for purpose. Yet, with each moment spent in her presence, he felt a mounting conflict brewing within him. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Maya revealed the harsh realities of her classroom, overcrowded spaces, falling apart textbooks, and a desperate need for resources. The enormity of their struggles crashed over him like waves, leaving his heart racing. As he confronted his moral dilemma, here he was, a millionaire immersed in his gilded cage, while children with dreams were trapped in their circumstances. Guilt tightened its grip around him. Did his wealth matter if he hoarded it alone, separate and unyielding? The pressure mounted, a tempest within him, as he and Maya spent evenings discussing her students and their dreams, intertwined with his own past aspirations. The walls of solitude he had built crumbled little by little under the weight of their conversations, each laugh shared intensifying the anguish in his chest. Yet a gnawing fear stopped him cold. What if he risked everything he had for something so uncertain? The thrill of ambition had always driven him before, but what if this new path crumbled like so many before? As the school board meeting approached, Ethan faced the crossroads of his existence, a chance to rekindle a forgotten purpose or retreat into the safety of his wealth. The ghostly laughter of the classroom echoed in his mind, haunting him as he stood on the precipice of his decision. Would he break free from the chains of his own making, or would he stay locked inside the walls he built, forever caught between two worlds? In the days leading up to the school board meeting, Ethan's mind swirled with conflicting emotions. He paced through the empty halls of his estate, his feet whispering against the polished marble floors as they led him from one room to another.
Each corner of the house echoed his solitude, and each idle moment mirrored the indecision gnawing at him. The idea of attending the meeting felt both thrilling and terrifying, a step toward a world he had long abandoned, a realm where success was measured in smiles rather than earnings. Maya had become a constant presence in his thoughts. Their conversations were transformational. Her passion ignited a flicker of ambition that had long been extinguished within him. He realized he wanted to help, not merely from a distance, but hand in hand with those striving for a better future. But how? What could a successful businessman possibly contribute to a group of kids on the brink of hopelessness? He felt a disconnect between his wealth and their needs, as if years of what-ifs and missed childhood moments loomed like shadows. The day of the meeting arrived, and Ethan found himself standing before the mirror adjusting his tie. The reflection staring back held a man conflicted yet resolved. He could either present himself as the detached capitalist he had been, or embrace the role of a mentor willing to invest in the future of others, not merely financially, but emotionally and socially. His heart raced. Could he shed the layers of solitude that encased him? Could he dive headfirst into a world fresh with possibility, yet unwelcoming by virtue of his past? With a deep breath, Ethan grabbed his briefcase, making a silent pact with himself to take that first leap. Though every instinct within him felt the plunge
Into unknown waters would be overwhelming, he knew. Retreating into the safety of his fortune meant sacrificing the potential of something greater. As he drove toward the school, determination mixed with trepidation shook his hands, but he pressed forward. Upon entering the school auditorium, a sense of nostalgia washed over him again. Only this time it wasn't just the memories of his own youth. It was the realization that he could influence generations yet to come. Students filled the seats, each one a reservoir of untapped potential. And as he scanned the sea of eager faces, his heart knew those were the futures he could illuminate. Ethan took a seat among the panel of board members, his palms resting on the podium as he wrestled with his own thoughts, forced to confront the limits he had imposed upon himself. He had spent years crafting his brand, emphasizing the isolation success could bring. But would they accept him? Would they allow a wealthy outsider into their tight-knit world? A surge of vulnerability nearly paralyzed him. But as he looked to Maya, she offered an encouraging nod, her eyes sparkling with belief in a shared mission. As the discussions unfolded around him, Ethan saw the flaws that needed addressing, the neglect within the system, the struggles of the dedicated educators, and, most importantly, the fortitude of the students yearning for more. If he chose to advocate for change, he understood he would have to confront his insecurity, ultimately embracing his role as someone who could facilitate not just monetary support, but hope. By the end of the meeting, one vital message resounded in his mind. It was time to invest in his humanity and the future of those children. Standing at a crossroads where the weight of decisions loomed larger than life itself, a stirring realization crystallized within him. But the gravity of that decision gripped his heart in a vice. Could he really transform his life from one of solitude to one of purpose? Ethan stepped outside, breaths coming labored in the crisp evening air, enveloped by the cacophony of laughter and joy wafting from the school. It was more than just a meeting. It had ignited in him a burning passion to act. Suddenly, the thrilling prospect of mentorship unfolded in his mind, yet another toll of apprehension struck deep within him. Was he truly prepared to face the potential ridicule, the risk of failure, and the emotional investment this role demanded? As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting an orange glow over the school, Ethan felt the weight of possibility resting on his shoulders. He knew there would be no turning back. The path he was on demanded courage. If he was to bridge the realm of wealth with the world of the underprivileged, he would need to summon every ounce of resolve he had left. Yet the looming question remained. Was he ready to confront not just the students' challenges, but also the shadows of his own past? As he walked away, a thought surfaced. Maybe this was the beginning of something profound, yet an unsettling feeling echoed at the back of his mind.
Would his wealth become a tool for transformation, or yet another barrier that ensured his isolation? The moment of truth approached. Ethan awoke the following morning feeling a storm brewing within him, a tempest of uncertainty and resolve colliding in his chest. The meeting still echoed in his mind, with the faces of the students lingering like ghosts, each one a reminder of the potential waiting to be unleashed. He found himself sitting at his kitchen table, staring at a blank notepad as he grappled with the enormity of his newfound commitment. How could he translate the passionate desire to help into actionable steps? He picked up the pen, tapping it rhythmically against the paper as he deliberated. What exactly could he do to begin? His business instincts cried out for a strategy, something empirical and concrete. Yet this wasn't a corporate merger, it was the raw essence of human connection. Ethan felt the pulse of urgency urging him to put his plans into motion, but didn't know where to start. In the hours that followed, Ethan found himself scribbling down ideas, but they soon began to falter under the weight of his self-doubt. Should he offer financial support to a struggling sports program? Organize tutoring sessions for students needing extra help? His heart raced as doubt seeped into his thoughts. What if his efforts fell flat? What if the very students he aimed to assist turned their backs on him? Determination flared momentarily, igniting a resolve not to surrender to anxiety. He decided to reach out, leveraging his business background to initiate dialogue with educators and community leaders who could help him understand their needs more profoundly. After a series of calls, he set up a meeting with Maya, looking to her as a guiding compass. She was rooted in that world. Her understanding would illuminate the path he needed to take. In the rendezvous at a quaint cafe, Maya's eyes sparkled with enthusiasm as they unfolded plans. "Ethan, you have resources and connections. The school has ideas but lacks funds and implementation skills. We can organize workshops, mentorship programs, bring in industry professionals." Her passion was contagious, and for a moment, Ethan felt himself swept up by its tide. As they brainstormed, he could feel himself beginning to see possibilities where he had only noticed barriers before. His experiences in business, that world of cascading spreadsheets and profit margins, could be utilized positively to create structure around the budding initiatives at the school. He envisioned educational seminars where students could explore entrepreneurship and enterprise. Yet as sparks of inspiration flew, shadows of self-doubt lurked. Suddenly, Maya's voice snapped him back to focus. "You are not just a businessman here, Ethan. You need to embody the very change you wish to see. Share your own story. It matters just as much as the skills you bring." Her words pierced through the veil of his previous isolation, revealing a path he had yet to internalize. Feeling a gust of energy, Ethan committed mentally to embracing this opportunity through vulnerability. The thought of standing before students, disclosing his vulnerabilities, filled him with apprehension but equally with a sense of liberation. To unveil his struggles as a child of wealth, to share what isolation had taught him, perhaps this was the bridge into their world he had been seeking. As the days passed and preparations began, the anxiety began to meld into excitement. Unbeknownst to him, that fragility would be the cornerstone of real connection. However, just as he started to visualize this newfound direction, word came of resistance. A faction within the school board was skeptical about his involvement. When the next meeting approached, Ethan felt a lurch in his stomach. The very arena that promised potential was now clouded in conflict. Would they see him as an ally, or would they frame him as an intrusion? Ethan realized it was time to confront this challenge head-on. As he prepared to walk into the meeting, he steeled himself for the confrontation looming ahead. He had traveled too far to retreat into the shadows once more. The moment had come. He could either wield his wealth as a shield or use it as a tool for reconciliation. Would he rise to the occasion, or would his past fears seep back in and thwart his efforts? The uncertainty crackled in the air around him, right before he took his first step into danger. Was he truly prepared to face the critics hell-bent on testing his resolve? A room full of skeptical faces awaited Ethan as he walked into the school auditorium. The light cast an unyielding glare on polished wooden surfaces and decorative banners promoting academic achievement. The air was thick with apprehension as he spotted the members of the school board seated at the front, their expressions inscrutable. Each furrowed brow seemed a challenge, a reminder of the many levels of resistance he must penetrate. As he cleared his throat, the murmurings faded, replaced by a stifling silence. Ethan's heart pounded, a steady drumbeat of self-doubt threatening to envelop his resolve. Looking into the faces surrounding him, some eager, others apprehensive, he felt a rush of determination wash over him. These weren't just critics, they were advocates of these students' futures, their motivations stemming from deep-rooted care and concern. "Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak," he began, his voice stronger than he anticipated. He had rehearsed this moment, yet nothing could prepare him for the actual confrontation. "I understand that many of you are worried about my involvement. I came here not as a businessman trying to take over, but as someone who cares about empowering our youth." The board chairwoman, a stern woman with sharp features, leaned forward, arms crossed. "Ethan, it's not about caring. We need more than intentions. What do you bring to the table?" The question hung in the air.
Like a heavy fog, it beckoned him to defend his stance with substance, not promises. Every word he uttered could either solidify their doubts or dismantle them. "I bring my experience," he responded slowly, choosing his words with care. "Experience in navigating challenges, understanding obstacles, and, candidly, overcoming personal struggles. My aim is to implement structured programs, mentorships led by industry professionals, and create a collaborative atmosphere where students feel equipped to explore their potential." He observed the gradual shift in body language amongst some board members. He was connecting, albeit slowly. Yet the chairwoman was still fixed in her skepticism, her eyes narrowed. "There are many who have come before you, Ethan," she challenged, "people with deep pockets but shallow intentions. What makes you different?" Ethan's pulse quickened. This was the moment he feared most and yearned for, the chance to unmask the deeper aspects of his journey. "I am not my wealth nor my status," he confessed, the words flowing with unexpected candor. "I grew up in privilege but faced my own battle with loneliness and isolation. I want to share that reality with the students. I want them to know they are not alone in their struggles. I want them to see that success isn't just about numbers. It's about personal growth, resilience, and human connection." As he spoke, it felt as if barriers began to crack, just a little, but enough to light a spark of hope. He could see a flicker of curiosity in some of their eyes. His vulnerability was disarming. But still, he sensed the chairwoman's skepticism, freshly engraved, as impenetrable as iron. "Words are easy, Ethan," she replied coolly. "What proof do you have that you can deliver?" In that moment, it hit him. Delivering proof meant more than words. It required actions that resonated with sincerity. He hadn't yet provided any tangible commitments. "You're right," he said, a newfound fervor igniting within him. "Let's not just talk about plans. Let me collaborate with educators to create a pilot workshop. We can track its impact, evaluate its effectiveness, and assess students' feedback. If I fail to deliver in that context, I will withdraw." He felt the weight of the room shift ever so slightly. The tension didn't disappear entirely, yet he sensed the board members exchanging glances, weighing the offer. A sign of interest, perhaps? "That's a start, Ethan," Maya piped up from her seat in the back, her voice warm. "But be prepared to dig deeper. The students need someone who is willing to show up consistently, not just for a program, but in their lives." Those words resonated like a bell tolling in the distance, reaffirming his resolve. Could he genuinely commit to more than just a series of workshops? Was he prepared to be vulnerable and present for these students, thereby transforming from merely an ally into an essential part of their lives? Ethan's thoughts raced as the meeting began to adjourn. He had breached the first layer of resistance, yet an unmistakable void lay ahead, filled with uncertainty and possibility. As he gathered his papers, he was struck by a realization. This venture wasn't solely about the students. It was also about challenging his own boundaries and emerging from the shadows cast by his past. Leaving the auditorium, a whirlwind of emotions stirred within him. The path was now more complex and profound than he had anticipated, filled with both trepidation and excitement. Would he summon the courage to forge ahead, or would the ghosts of his insecurities loom over him once again? The answer loomed on the horizon, waiting to be uncovered. Ethan stepped outside, the stark contrast of the brisk autumn air hitting him like a slap. The muffled echoes of applause from inside the auditorium faded, leaving him in a bubble of silence that contrasted sharply with the intensity of the past hour. He leaned against the cool brick wall, his thoughts churning. In that moment, he had plucked at the strings of his own vulnerability, unraveling years of defense mechanisms built to shield him from scrutiny. His phone buzzed in his pocket, snapping him back to reality. It was a message from Maya, something brief yet charged. "Great first step. Let's meet tomorrow to brainstorm for the workshop." He appreciated her encouragement, but it solidified the weight of responsibility he had just shouldered. Ethan started walking, feeling the crunch of leaves underfoot, grounding him amidst the uncertainty. The commitment to those students felt daunting. It wasn't merely about running workshops, it was about cultivating relationships. Could he truly open himself up to these students in a genuine way? The idea of pouring himself into nurturing their potential while facing his insecurities made him question everything he'd taken for granted in his success-driven life. He found himself at a small coffee shop, a place he'd frequented during his student days. The barista, a young woman with an approachable smile, greeted him warmly. "The usual Ethan?" she asked, her eyes sparkling with recognition. It was comforting, being seen in this way. He nodded, appreciative yet acutely aware of his deeper struggle. While he enjoyed professional accolades, a chasm had opened around his personal interactions over the years. What if he failed again? What if opening up led to rejection, isolating him further? As he sipped his coffee, the familiar taste brought memories flashing back, moments of laughter, companionship, and his own youthful ambitions. It struck him. He had once been eager to connect, to influence, but life had twisted his ambitions into solitary pursuits of success. Somehow, he needed to navigate back to that version of himself who found joy in collaboration. He left the cafe, compelled to call on a mentor who had guided him through his earlier formative years. The man, David, had an integrity that commanded respect and understanding. If Ethan could harness just a fraction of that wisdom for the students, perhaps he stood a chance. Dialing David's number, he felt the anxious pulse of anticipation. The kind that brought conflicting emotions, hope, and trepidation. Would David offer insights that could sharpen his commitment into actionable goals? What if he could leverage this meeting into practical advice that would not only help him, but also enrich the lives of the young people he sought to influence? David answered on the second ring, his voice welcoming and filled with warmth. Ethan disclosed the essence of his newfound mission, his voice animated with urgency. Ideas started bubbling forth as he described the workshop, the vision he had for forging connections. David listened intently, guiding him thoughtfully through the complexities of mentorship, the importance of authenticity, and the necessity of enduring presence. As their conversation unfolded, Ethan felt rejuvenated. David's wisdom served as a lighthouse in a storm, illuminating aspects of mentorship that he had merely skimmed over in his initial approach. The reality of this venture was dawning upon him. It would require a level of introspection and investment he had long avoided. After saying goodbye, he felt a shift. The gears within him were turning more purposefully now. The reflection on his own growth had ignited a passionate resolve. He could be more than a facilitator. He could be a mentor, an advocate, a guiding force for those grappling with their own uncertainties. The following day, as the first rays of sunlight pierced through the morning fog, Ethan set off to meet Maya, intent on transforming uncertainty into tangible steps forward. Yet with each step, a quiet fear lingered. What if the real challenge lay in more profound personal explorations than he had anticipated? His commitment was solid, but the battle for his authentic self awaited. Would he be brave enough to confront the lingering patterns of isolation that held him hostage? Would he embrace vulnerability enough to see the transformation he craved in both himself and the students he sought to inspire? As the door of the school loomed ahead, Ethan took a deep breath, eager to begin this journey. Yet the nagging question pulsed within him. Was he ready to redefine not only his approach to mentorship, but the very fabric of his own identity? The sun hung low, casting elongated shadows as Ethan entered the school, the air thick with the promise of change. The familiar scent of chalk and the distant chatter of students felt like echoes from a past life, filled with both nostalgia and apprehension. He spotted Maya near the entrance, her energy crackling with enthusiasm as she waved him over. "Ethan, I've been thinking about this workshop nonstop," she exclaimed, her eyes bright with ideas that swirled like autumn leaves in the wind. Her excitement was infectious, a stark reminder of the vitality he desired to bring to his own approach. "Me too," he replied, forcing a smile, but the weight of his own uncertainty flickered like a candle about to extinguish. He joined her, layering their thoughts, sketching a foundation of what their workshop could become. Together, they brainstormed ways to inspire students, cultivate engagement, and challenge perceptions. Each idea felt like a small step toward his goal, yet there remained a nagging inevitability that he had to wrestle with. Would these strategies translate into authentic mentorship? As they spoke, he caught himself hesitating, the impulse to retreat simmering below the surface. Was he equipped to lead these conversations? With every suggestion from Maya, he felt a mixture of excitement and dread. Discomfort began to shape his words, and his mind shifted uneasily. Was he merely performing the role of mentor without genuinely embodying the essence of it? The thought clenched tightly around him. "Ethan, what's on your mind?" Maya's voice pierced through his inner turmoil. "I can see you're not fully here." He sighed, running a hand through his hair. "I'm worried about whether I can really connect with them. I've spent too long building walls." The admission tasted bitter on his tongue, ringed with vulnerability. Maya studied him, her expression softening. "You don't have to be someone you're not to inspire them. Real connection comes from honesty. Let them see who you are, flaws and all. That's how you create trust." Her words struck a chord, reverberating through the intricate network of his self-doubt. Where had he learned to believe that vulnerability equated to weakness? In mentorship, perhaps it could be the very lifeline he needed. But could he truly manage such authenticity? Feeling emboldened by her reassurance, Ethan ventured to voice a deeper concern. "What if they reject me? I have avoided genuine relationships for so long. What if they see right through me?" Maya nodded thoughtfully, grounded their conversation. "Rejection is part of the process. What matters is how you respond. Instead of seeing it as a defeat, pitch it as a partnership. Learn together, grow together." Enthusiasm began to swirl, battling the skepticism. Maybe this wasn't just about the workshop, but about redefining his own narrative alongside the students. There was potential for mutual growth, a shared journey. As they finalized plans that day, Ethan felt a burgeoning sense of purpose. Each step they took toward the workshop was not merely logistical, it was transformative.
Yet that overwhelming sense of vulnerability loomed large as they parted, and the reality of implementing their ideas descended upon him like a timely autumn rain. He debated whether to reach out to David to share these developments, or to navigate the impending changes independently. Asking for guidance might unravel the fragile confidence he was beginning to stitch together, but did he truly have all the answers? The thought of facing this new territory solo stirred anxiety within him. Taking a deep breath, he resolved to trust himself. The journey into authenticity was not merely a professional obligation, it was a personal reckoning. He stepped into his car, which now felt less like a capsule of solitude and more like a vehicle of exploration. As he drove away, a new question echoed in his mind. Could he transform the apprehension of being vulnerable into a transformation?
Courageous strength that would resonate with his students. The uncertainty was palpable, like a storm brewing in the horizon. Ethan steered his car toward the horizon, slowly lighting the path ahead. Yet the nagging notion remained. How much of his own past would he have to confront before he could truly guide the lives of others? Ethan woke the next morning with a subtle weight in his chest. Sleep had evaded him, a casualty of contemplation, and the dawn light filtered in, illuminating the clutter of self-doubt that had taken root overnight. His phone chimed, a reminder of an upcoming faculty meeting. He had resisted the urge to call David, ordering his thoughts instead. But now, faced with the stark reality of the day, he felt ill-prepared. He mulled over the content of the meeting as he sipped his coffee, the bitter taste mirroring his anxiety. Would David bring up the workshop? Would the other faculty members question Ethan's abilities? He flipped through the notes he had prepared, casual for others, but monumental for him. The outline lay before him like a map to an uncharted territory. The potential for revelation and growth was laden with peril. He reminded himself of Maya's words. Authenticity would be his ally. Arriving at school, the buzz of conversation enveloped him. Students flitted between classes like colorful sprites, and their laughter rang like a distant melody. In that moment, he questioned the impact of his hesitations on their potential. If he wanted to inspire, he had to confront the barriers he had erected. During the meeting, Ethan listened as colleagues presented their initiatives. They spoke from places of assurance, ideas flowing seamlessly as they shared ambitions for their students. When it was his turn to speak, a knot tightened in his stomach. He cleared his throat, his palms sweating against the cold, polished table. With deliberate breaths, he began to articulate his vision for the workshop, letting the reverberation of his own voice drown out the echo of his insecurities. "I believe mentorship is a two-way street," he said slowly, gauging the faces of his peers, searching for signs of skepticism. "It's not just about imparting knowledge, it's about connecting. I want to create a space where students can see themselves in our journeys, discover their own paths through our shared experiences." As he spoke, he felt the constriction in his chest ease slightly. He was putting forth a proposition that was as much about himself as it was about them. The acknowledgement of his vulnerabilities, his past failures, began transforming into what Maya had promised, a bridge towards forming genuine relationships. When the meeting concluded, the usual farewell banter filled the room. He lingered, watching the dynamics at play, and as he turned to leave, David approached him. "Ethan, that was a solid presentation. You've got a unique take on mentorship. Want to grab some lunch and talk more about the workshop?" The offer caught Ethan off guard, and his apprehension flared. He wanted to view this as a furthering of his journey toward authenticity, yet deep-seated fears of rejection clouded his judgment. "I'd appreciate that," he managed, though his voice trembled slightly. At lunch, as they delved deeper into conversation, Ethan felt a growing awareness. David resonated with the struggles of vulnerability, sharing his own experiences in navigating mentorship. Each anecdote drew parallels with Ethan's journey, illuminating paths previously obscured by self-doubt. But amidst forging this connection, darkness crept back in, brushing against the edges of the conversation. Ethan had skirted around discussing his past. His reluctance to be open had kept him isolated in his own world, wary of being exposed. The burden of honesty weighed heavily. Would he breach that threshold? Sharing such pieces of himself felt risky, yet essential. As they wrapped up lunch, the gnawing feeling of vulnerability returned. "Ethan," David said, leaning in slightly, as though sensing his internal struggle, "the only way you can successfully guide those students is if you're willing to let them see the real you. It's what connects humans. It's what they're searching for." Ethan nodded, but a flicker of panic surged within him. What did honesty truly entail? Before he could respond, David stood. "Think about those walls you've built. Only you can decide when to tear them down." As David walked away, Ethan remained seated, grappling with the enormity of that moment. What would it take to dismantle his walls? With each breath, he felt clarity approach, a determination to confront this head-on. The time had come to face not just the students, but himself. The looming question was no longer whether he could connect, but how much of himself he was willing to reveal to foster that connection. In the stillness, a thought crystallized. Would dismantling those walls lead to liberation or expose him to deeper fears? Uncertainty wafted in the air, heavy and thick, urging him to make a decision. How far was he from that authentic self? With a sense of urgency igniting within him, Ethan left lunch with a mission. But what confronting that authenticity would entail remained an unpredictable journey. Would he choose vulnerability as his weapon, or retreat back into the familiar shadows of his insecurities? The choices loomed ahead, like dark clouds, thrilling yet fraught with storm. Ethan walked through the hallways, the cacophony of student dialogues creating a dissonance within him. Each laugh felt like a challenge, as if they were demanding something from him, an authenticity he hadn't dared to fully embrace. He could feel the weight of judgment, perhaps self-imposed, creep in at the corners of his mind. How could he teach authenticity when he felt so distinctly inauthentic himself? As he entered his classroom, the space felt rigid with the expectations he placed upon himself. The bright posters on the wall, filled with motivational quotes about courage and change, seemed to mock him. He stepped behind his desk and closed his eyes, taking a deep breath to center himself. He needed to focus, to frame this experience, not as a battleground against his insecurities, but as an opportunity for growth. The students filed in, their energy palpable. Ethan noticed a few familiar faces, eager and bright-eyed. He smoothed out his notes, channeling all of his previous uncertainty into the preparation for today's lesson on mentorship. An ironic twist, given his own reluctance to fully embrace that very role. They needed to see a model of vulnerability, but if he didn't allow them access to his truth, how could he expect them to engage? Today, we're going to discuss mentorship and what it means to be guided by someone whose journey you can relate to, he began, his voice steady but his heart racing. I want to share with you my own experiences, my struggles, and what it has taken for me to be here. The students leaned in, curiosity dancing across their faces. Ethan could see they were absorbing his words. He hesitated, contemplating how much of his story to reveal. Did they need to hear about the moments when he fell short? Could he convey that without exposing his vulnerability in a manner he wasn't sure he could handle? The silence in the room was palpable, expectant. Pressing forward, he decided to share a formative moment from his early career, those years filled with doubt and disillusionment. When I first started teaching, I failed to recognize how important connection was. My focus was on textbook content, and I missed the chance to truly guide my students. I lost some, all because I wasn't brave enough to share my own struggles. As the words flowed, his soul felt lighter, as if bricks were loosening from the walls he had constructed. A few students exchanged glances, nodding as if they understood. He shared the essence of what it meant to be a mentor, the dual nature of vulnerability entwined with guidance. Mentorship isn't about perfection, he continued, pausing to gauge their reactions. It's about being open and honest, showing your scars,
so they know their own struggles are not isolating. There it was, a shift within him. Each sentence peeled back layers he had been so careful to maintain. In that classroom, authenticity began to feel attainable, not daunting. The discussion progressed, and students began to share their own stories, their vulnerabilities rising like bubbles in a fizzy drink. It was cathartic, both for them and for Ethan. He realized that by risking exposure, he had opened a conduit for trust. Moments of laughter, silence, and connection filled the space, forming a tapestry that would shape their relationships. As the bell rang, signaling the end of class, Ethan felt elated, yet apprehensive. Had he said enough? Had he shared too much? The moment was intoxicating, yet fraught with the fear of judgment creeping back in. Then a student raised her hand. "Mr. Taylor, thank you for sharing. It makes me feel like I can be real too." Those words sank deep into him. It was evidence that he might be forging the
connections he so desperately sought, and perhaps by reflecting authenticity, he could help others find their footing as well. With students departing, Ethan lingered behind, processing the enormity of what had just transpired. The echoes of mutual vulnerability spun in his mind. He had taken a step toward dismantling his walls, but how much further could he go? What other pieces of his story lay hidden within him, waiting to be revealed? This opened a new chapter, yet the path ahead remained murky. Would he continue to take risks? The tension of past hesitation clutched at him, but anticipation blooms with each decision towards authenticity. What other revelations awaited in this journey of self-exploration and connection? Would he open further or retreat back into the shadows of fear? The uncertainty lingered, electrifying and daunting, as he left the classroom, ready to confront whatever came next. Ethan wandered through the empty school hallways, the remnants of laughter from his classroom still echoing. But now they felt less like claws and more like a soft whisper of possibility. Still, uncertainty loomed over him, thickening the air like impending storms. Feeling exposed from his earlier revelations, he realized that vulnerability was a double-edged sword. While it could foster connection, it also invited the risk of judgment he so desperately wanted to avoid. As he approached his car, doubt settled in again like a fog. He had cracked open a door to his authentic self, but what lay beyond? Would the students' admiration remain, or would they one day dismiss him as just another failed mentor? Asking questions felt overwhelming. The weight of potential answers clung to him. Gripping the steering wheel, he took a deep breath, trying to channel the calm reassurance he had offered his students. "It's a journey," he muttered to himself, "not a destination." But the principle felt abstract. Mentorship involved real stakes, and he was caught in a web of self-doubt. At home, his cluttered desk stared back at him, littered with lesson plans, discarded papers, and half-finished novels. It became another battleground, this time against his lack of organization and focus. He had promised himself he would develop new skills this year, but procrastination was a familiar foe, one he struggled to understand. He imagined a classroom full of students, inspired and engaged, yet here he was, unsure of how to inspire even himself. He reached for a pile of teaching resources. Flipping through, he stumbled upon a brochure for a local educational conference titled "Embracing Authenticity in Education." The images of teachers engaged in lively discussions sparked a flicker of hope within him. "What if I attended this conference?" he mused. "I could learn tools to help me grow, both as a mentor and as a person." Determined, he set the resources aside and picked up his phone, fingers hovering over the screen. A swift rush of self-doubt returned, urging him to close the brochure and retreat to safer ground, home where worries didn't require action. But with another intake of breath, he silenced those thoughts and clicked on the registration link. What's the worst that could happen? The conference could unveil connections, sharing stories, and perhaps a chance to step further into his journey toward authenticity. A flurry of preparation ensued. Over the next several days, Ethan pored over conference materials, crafted his thoughts into an outline for discussions with other educators, and even rehearsed personal anecdotes. Each moment he spent preparing felt both liberating and intimidating. When the day arrived, he donned a crisp shirt and slacks, aiming for professionalism, yet feeling the familiar tightness of anxiety in his chest. The conference buzzed with excitement, gaudy name tags proudly displayed, and instead of feeling invigorated by the atmosphere, he found himself scrutinizing others, measuring their authenticity against his own disquiet. Inside the main hall, he took in the faces around him, feeling like an outsider. Maybe I don't belong here, he thought, the weight of imposter syndrome settling atop his shoulders again. But as speakers began to share their stories, he remembered the power of vulnerability he had expressed in class. It was a mantra he needed to embrace right then. If he wanted to grow, he had to connect. During a breakout session, he found a small circle of educators willing to share. The tension within him began to thaw as he gradually opened up, recounting his own struggles and aspirations. Listening to others mirrored his journey, their stories affirming the notion that true mentorship thrived within a web of shared experiences. Minutes turned into hours, and for the first time, Ethan felt components of self-acceptance and courage fuse within him. Each conversation aligned pieces of his identity, and at the conclusion of the session, he felt an unfamiliar warmth, not just camaraderie, but a blossoming richness of belonging. As he walked to his car, longing to savor the sense of possibility, a thought sparked a new surge of realization. What if the journey transcended beyond teaching? What if his narrative could inspire not only his students, but others yearning for connection in the vast world of education? The winds of change brushed past him, igniting a sense of urgency to push further. But even as clarity dawned, a lingering fear emerged. Would he be prepared to face the deeper truths of his own story, including the parts that lingered in darkness? The uncertainty loomed again, beckoning him toward the next chapter in his journey of authenticity. Driven but apprehensive, he could only ask himself, was he brave enough to confront the roots of his own insecurities? Ethan stood outside the school, the warm sun kissing his face as he lavished in an unfamiliar sensation: fulfillment. In the months since he committed to mentoring students, he had transformed, reconnecting to a part of himself that the gilded cage of wealth had long concealed. Today, as he prepared to meet once more with the students he learned to cherish, he reflected on the journey that brought him here. He had conquered his solitary existence, and in its place blossomed a life rich with purpose. Where anxiety once plagued him, confidence now surged. No longer trapped in the echoing chambers of an empty mansion, Ethan had cultivated meaningful relationships both with students and faculty, enriching their lives as well as his own. The workshop he developed with Maya had concluded successfully last week, and the feedback echoed in his mind, uplifting him. Several students had shared their dreams and aspirations, inspired by his own vulnerability and willingness to stand before them, stripped of pretense. Each encounter reaffirmed his importance in their lives, validating his decision to integrate his wealth with authenticity. Ethan walked through the halls, greeting students by name, laughter and banter mingling seamlessly, his once empty life now vibrant with energy. When he reached the classroom, students clamored to share their work. The sight filled Ethan with indescribable satisfaction. He understood now how achievement was not merely profit margins, but the smiles of those empowered through shared knowledge. As he facilitated discussions, he witnessed the profound impact of mentorship in real time. Students, once hesitant, now flourished, a testament to the symbiotic growth he had nurtured. He had proven to himself that he could bridge the divide between wealth and humanity. In doing so, he dismantled walls both they and he had constructed. After class, Ethan gathered with Maya, celebratory coffee cups in hand. "I can't believe how far the students have come," he remarked, the joy radiating from him. Maya smiled, pride glimmering in her eyes. "You've built a foundation on authentic connections. They feel seen and heard, and your struggle to open up inspired them." Ethan nodded. "And I've realized it's okay to show my imperfections. In embracing vulnerability, I grappled not just with my past, but learned how to weave it into the present to uplift others."
Their conversation flowed, rich with plans for future initiatives. Ethan was not simply eager to participate, but fully engaged, his expertise in business now an asset that would enhance the educational landscape. They discussed potential workshops exploring entrepreneurship and financial literacy, laying the groundwork to impart essential life skills to students who otherwise felt disconnected from opportunities. As they finalized ideas, a student knocked and entered. "Mr. Taylor?" A shy smile graced her face, but the tremor in her voice hinted at the weight of her inquiry. "Yes," he replied warmly. "I just wanted to say thank you," she whispered, her eyes glistening with sincerity. "You make it feel okay to be real about our dreams and fears." Gratitude surged through him. This moment captured the essence of his transformation, the acknowledgement that his journey had not only impacted him, but shaped the lives of others for the better. Nothing felt more rewarding than nurturing young minds while remaining true to his own. Ethan would always wear his past as armor instead of a shroud, an idea he had wrestled with but ultimately embraced in strength. With renewed purpose, Ethan leaned forward, embracing the young
student's authenticity. "I'm proud of you for recognizing your voice. Keep using it. It's powerful." As she left, he caught Maya's eyes, the unspoken bond of shared endeavor linking them together. They were co-architects, designing futures. His past paved the way, but it was their collaborative spirit illuminating the path ahead. Pulling his phone out, Ethan scrolled to find a message he meant to send to David, his mentor. Today was the day he'd finally reach out to express his gratitude and the profound impact David's initial guidance had on him. "Something within me has shifted," he began typing, "and I want to thank you for encouraging me to embrace my own story. Your lessons reverberate in every classroom I walk into now." He paused, but pressed send, knowing he had to acknowledge pivotal moments in his growth. A deep breath filled him with clarity. Stepping into mentorship had elevated not only his students, but his own sense of self. He was flourishing, and the knowledge he had woven threads of hope through collective experiences fueled his continuous evolution. Today was a defining moment, the culmination of his resolve translating into responsibility. From an isolated millionaire to a mentor who engaged not only with students, but himself, he firmly established his position in the lives he touched. Standing amidst laughter and the bustle of the hallway, Ethan realized he had emerged as a figure striving to elevate others through empathy and understanding. In doing so, he had proven most importantly that the greatest wealth was not amassed in financial gains, but rather in nurturing growth. Now more than ever, he felt that authentic connection, the realization that he was capable of inspiring change in the world around him. Good things are happening, he thought, invigorated by the journey he had embraced. He was ready to continue paving the way ahead. His commitment was not merely to teach, but to learn alongside his students. The quest for authenticity was just beginning. It was exhilarating and filled with promise. He stepped forward, heart full of purpose, invigorated by the next chapter awaiting him. He was no longer a solitary figure lost in a hustle-driven existence. Ethan found his identity interwoven with lives outside his own, and that was the greatest victory of all. You need to subscribe now so you don't miss the next transformative stories of personal growth. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and support the journey of inspiration we are building together. Comment your reactions and insights about Ethan's journey. Your thoughts matter. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to witness this conclusion. Don't wait even one more second to enlighten others.